afternoon. Welcome to it. Time to have a look at markets. But before we get to that, news out earlier this morning that fintech investment firm Crossfin has been acquired by a consortium of companies, including Patrice Motsepe's African Rainbow Capital, for a consideration of 1.5 billion rand. I spoke to the CEO of Crossfin, Dean Sparrow, about what this transaction means for the company, especially the next phase of growth. Have a listen.
So Crossfin is a fintech business. So when we refer to the next phase of our growth, it's really about enabling us to continue to do what we've been doing to date, which is proliferate the ability to offer the end consumer a payment option that is alternative to cash. And we do that through deploying various types of technology. The simplest would be a card acceptance device. And what we do quite specifically is we target a part of the market, specifically the small, medium enterprise or informal market, where traditionally some of the traditional financial institutions have not found a mechanism and a commercially viable way to service the end consumer in those markets. So really this capital that we've secured as part of the transaction that we've just announced this morning will enable us as Crossfin to continue to invest in the core capability, and ultimately to the benefit of enabling financial inclusion and offering very unique and tailored financial products and services to the end consumer, both in South Africa, which is our predominant base, but also into a number of parts of sub-Saharan Africa.
Right, so for many of our viewers who may be hearing of Crossfin for the first time, if one wants to understand your business model, where do they begin?
I think the simplistic option would be to think about our payments capabilities, because a lot of consumers in the market would have in some shape or form ordinarily touched our payment capability. So if you ever pulled a debit card or credit card out of your wallet or your purse to effect a transaction, and it was typically in a more small, medium enterprise environment, so it could have been in a doctor's room, it could have been at your local retail store, it could have been actually for a plumber or an electrician that had a card device in their hand, then you often would have found that that would have been technology and a proposition facilitated by Crossfin. So that's the core one, that's the most probably the easiest to reference. But we have a number of SMMEs, in fact, through our business retail capital, in excess of 38,000 small, medium enterprises have accessed funding from our retail capital business, which is very focused on providing funding lines to the small, medium enterprise. And so that would be another touch point. So I think the key brands that consumers would have maybe become familiar with in the market would be the likes of the retail capital, merchant cash advance products, the eKhokha, MPOS payment capability. So these are some of the businesses and brands that are generally visible, particularly in the small, medium enterprise landscape.
Right, so let's talk about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated lockdown measures. Crossfin has three main pillars. When you look at those pillars, which of those were affected by the pandemic, if at all?
So we've actually been very fortunate. In fact, what the pandemic has done for the Crossfin business as a whole, and in fact, each of our individual pillars, is it's essentially driven almost an acceleration around the consumer's willingness to use a mechanism to make payments other than cash. So we typically find that consumers post-pandemic are more inclined to do an online transaction through an e-commerce payment capability, or using a card capability, or even the mobile coupon or voucher capability to effect payments. And that's actually been a very positive impact on our business, fortunately. So obviously a number of businesses, a number of industries have been very negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic. We're fortunate within the fintech business of Crossfin that the pandemic has actually been an accelerator to the consumer's willingness to actually utilize our products and offerings.
Let's talk about the fintech, industry in South Africa. What's your assessment of it, say, over the past couple of years or so? What have been the sort of, the high points and the points that I suppose there's still a lot more room to grow and a lot more opportunity?
So look, there are a number of mega trends that have definitely evolved over the past 5 to 10 years. Some of the simple ones to reference would be the pervasiveness of a smartphone in the market. And therefore, what you will find in both South Africa and up into a large part of sub-Saharan Africa is a number of consumers actually, in fact, have a smartphone in their hand. And that drives the ability to offer a different way and means of transacting once you've got smartphone and connectivity. So that's a mega trend that's happened. As a consequence of that mega trend and the technology behind that, the ability to reach historically, which would have been very difficult, communities, informal markets, to offer them, relevant financial products and services would have been very difficult. But because of the smartphone pervasiveness, because of the connectivity and bandwidth capability, what you now have is you have the ability to take and tailor relevant products and services of a financial nature and offer them to the end consumer that historically would not have been able to access them. And I think that that's the overriding, mega trend, let's say, that really drives and fuels our business and our excitement, not only with where we find ourselves now, but where we believe the world will continue to evolve and grow over the next 5 to 10 years.